You've done it again. You've fallen back into your bad habits. It's
The No Class Podcast.
with your internet buddies, Eddie.
And Matt.
And it's a re record of episode 29, all about alignments.
Tee.
So let's start with our most popular segment, the Long Con Plug. Plug that Long Con, Matt. Plug it away.
You know it. Shill like with both hands. So, I'm trying to remember what I said last time, but yeah. It's been a minute. The Long Con is going to happen in November, other barring the government or the hotel saying no, because if anything, we're on the hook for the price. And seeing as how successful NTRPG went, which they were very much in the midst of the worst of this in Dallas when it was surging. But they used great precautions and were very smart, and you know, masks were readily available, blah, blah, blah. Nobody that we've heard of had any ill outcomes from that. So by November, I would like to think we will have flattened the curve and blah, blah, blah. So yeah, we're going to have it in November, unless we're made not to.
Unless they shut it down.
That's right. And using wise precautions and all and reiterating what I said last time, you would know it because that recording failed. They've always been very hygienic and had a lot of those little stations with hand sanitizer. They have even more of that. They're going even more stringently with their precautions. So, you know, we're not doing this carelessly, you know, which should go without saying. In fact, I didn't think of this last recording, but we've always been a very hygienic con. Why is that? The very first even, we had ample hand sanitizer everywhere, Kleenexes and all that stuff. So
well, one of us might be a germaphobe.
No. Really? Mm-hmm. Everyone please come up and shake my hand vigorously at the con. I love that. He's talking about me. So anyway, but no, yeah, we're going to have it, man.
We'll also have an all-you-can-eat seafood buffet. Get all of your hands in there. All hands in. All hands
no
on
sneeze
deck.
guards.
Sneeze guards are for the weak.
Yeah, that's right. This is November. Let's get our resistances built up, you know, for the winter.
Yeah, eat some dirt and start eating dirt now.
Yes, right now, I want you to start, you know, licking garbage cans.
Become hard, strong like a bull.
And there's no weakness in this dojo. So anyway, all right. So is that enough indulgences about, you know? Oh, I would say, if you're coming. And you probably heard your ticket. If you don't buy your ticket, also please post games. We'd really appreciate that. People don't see games, they get scared.
Yeah. Well, since this is the re-record, now we're doing it on Gen Con weekend. What do you think about that?
Ooh la la. You know what? I'm biting my tongue.
Whoopee.
Because you know how I feel about Gen Con.
But we have just passed, DCC Day by about a month.
I'm heartbroken. And
Free RPG Day by about a weekend.
Heartbroken again.
So, two of those things that we really enjoy that we didn't get to do.
Yeah. We you know, not to toot our horn, but I mean, we love to run games for love of the game. We you know, pony up to run games for people. And I got to say, I really miss gaming with our buddies from Tyler, Nick, Skylar, Kenneth, you know, and some of those other folks that, you know, I miss gaming with them. You know, they're cool guys. They're fun to game with and hang out with, and I miss them. You know.
So since you said Tyler, you got to where I was going.
Yeah.
Geek World.
Yeah.
Geek World wasn't able to have the in-person events, but they did order the materials for DCC Day.
Yeah. Oh, and they have the free
RPG Day.
Yeah.
So if you're hearing this immediately upon release, run over there and get yourself some stuff.
Yeah.
And eventually, we will set up some makeup dates and run this.
Yeah. You know, Mark is really got a big heart, and he's, you know, he's still making this stuff available, and he wants to facilitate when it's safe for everybody because he cares about his customers. So when he feels it's safe and we can do
which
this,
I respect.
Yeah,
that's the way to go.
Absolutely, no one has a bigger heart than him. So that's really great, and I'm looking forward to when we can run those games.
And I'm sure you saw it online on the DCC Rocks forum. People were complaining that they could not get their hot little hands on the DCC giveaway for Free RPG Day.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of that. My local store didn't do it. So thanks again to Geek World.
Yeah.
Also, I saw those books are going for like $30 on eBay right now. Just that little
because the
$5 quick start
fan wants it. And here's the thing: I'm going to do it. I'm going to pat Mark on the back. But it's like you're getting at. A lot of stores said, well, if I can't do the in-store thing, I'm not going to buy it.
Right.
How thoughtful of Mark to buy the stuff knowing he's that there's not going to be gaming in the store. He still is buying this stuff with his own dollar that to be given away free. I mean, anyway, everybody knows Mark. He's a great guy.
Yep.
And a lot of the guys work there. Will, Caleb, they're great guys.
We love you, Geek World.
Yeah, absolutely. So,
you know what time it is now?
oh crap!
It's pop culture time.
Dun dun dun.
How about some books? You got any books you want to talk about?
I know. Okay, just like
Not comic books.
not
books.
comic books, gaming paraphernalia, or just like fantasy, sci-fi, blippity bloop.
Yeah.
Sadly, I've not been reading lately.
Well, I will say for books,
Mm-hmm.
because since this is a re-record, it's not fresh on our minds anymore.
Right.
Is the Barbarians of the Ruined Earth?
Okay, which that's a gaming paraphernalia. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now that just got that. That's by DIY Games. Mike Evans. Yeah, really great guy. Anybody's listening to this, paid attention. His material, Hubris, is phenomenal. I absolutely love that. And you can use that with fantasy, sci-fi. And there's so much cool stuff in there. You could cull something out of there to use. Anyway, it's great. And so he did Barbarians of the Ruined Earth. It's post-apocalyptic. It's the engine is from the Black Hack. Which
you
is
have to
kind of
explain that,
yeah,
too.
BX, old school OSR, but it's rules light.
And the name Black Hack is not because it's so evil. It was actually somebody's
Guy
last
named
name was Black.
like Fred Black or whatever, but he did kind of a clone of the old BX D&D rules and his own little spice on it or whatever. And it's been so popular with a subset of gamers that those rules have been used as the engine for a lot of different products.
And I think it's so rules light that the rules are actually, 3 pages of the book?
Yeah, I mean, it's not 5-8 pages or something. And when you hear that and you go, wait a minute, but no, you'll understand like the part about characters is, whatever. But I mean, once again, this book has so much stuff in it, but it's not a really heavy page count. There's some neat artwork in there. It's very flavorful. I think I read somewhere like Mike spent a lot of money on the artwork. But it's some pretty cool artwork in there. Anyway, I introduced it to some gamers. They grokked the system, and by a third of the way through the session, they had it down. So it shows you that, I mean, some people are like, I have to learn a new rule system. No, I mean, this is so rules light. Anybody that has any experience gaming will pick it up quickly and adapt to it. Anyway, a lot of fun. Can't say enough good things. The players really liked it. Essentially, at the end of the session, they're like, can we keep playing this? I'm like, well, yeah, sure. I mean, the hook was set.
Was it, though?
Of course it was.
And it was very Thundar-esque.
Yeah, if you remember Thundar the Barbarian, if you're not, go watch them. I think they're on YouTube or,
Yeah, or sometimes they were on Boomerang.
Yeah, wink, wink sources. But yeah, great, really neat post-apocalyptic cartoons from the 80s. I watched them as a kid, and that's what corrupted me. Part of it was Thundar the Barbarian. Ookla Ariel, we ride.
And that's why you can't have shows like that anymore, because you'll churn out that many more little Matts.
Little weirdos. You know it. What a world. They don't make them like that anymore.
All right, how about some comic books?
Well, that's your bailiwick.
Yeah, but I saw you had some comics at your place the other day.
Oh yeah, no, I'm reading comics, but
Den.
Well, yeah, I'd mentioned Den though in a previous podcast, and they're in Harrow County, which I love. We've talked about that before. So no, I love comics, but just recently I've had the different irons in the fire, and not to toot my own horn, but I've been very busy taking care of a lot of sick people with, well, you know what.
Radio silence.
Absolutely. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay. For the comics that I read lately, I read Hedy Lamarr.
I was telling somebody about that.
An Incredible Life.
Yeah, but she was a really interesting individual.
Yeah, it's the biography of the famous Golden Age actress.
Silver screen or whatever, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
She was a Hollywood bombshell, but she was actually a genius. And didn't she get like a Nobel Prize or something?
No.
Okay, but still.
This is one of these a genius not recognized in your time kind of stories.
I think since then, they've, some great contribution though.
Right. So it does talk about her and basically escaping Europe before the Nazis took over. So, I mean, you're in that kind of time frame. I really, like I said, we're redoing the podcast. So as I told you before, as I told Matt before, as he has to listen to it again, I don't think I've ever seen any of her movies.
Yeah.
But the one that I would probably be most likely would be Samson and Delilah
Ooh, la la.
with Cecil B. DeMille.
It, yeah,
So when he was doing those, so that's one that I'll probably check out.
yeah, I might too.
But what her big contribution was during World War II, they came up with a way kind of to make an uncrackable signal from the sub to the torpedo,
Mm-hmm.
and it kind of used like player piano technology where you
Mm-hmm.
would switch frequencies off, and they're like, well, how would you be able to switch the frequencies so much? And it was kind of a player piano type thing where you'd program it in like that and just go from one to the next and so forth and so on. And apparently, geez, what, 50 years later, they were using that in wireless technology.
Oh wow.
So a lot of your cell phone stuff,
Mm-hmm.
you can thank her for that.
Wow.
So, but yeah, completely unappreciated in her time
Mm-hmm.
for her mind, because it was one of those like, you're so good looking, because that was her thing, was being a bombshell.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it was like, you're so pretty, how could you also have this great idea?
Mm-hmm. And let's face it, not to go down that road, but in that day and age, a lot of times women might not have been appreciated so much
Exactly.
for their minds, So not like nowadays.
I was also reading, as most everybody knows, that I'm a big Transformers fan.
They're more than meets the eye.
So Transformers Galaxy is a pretty good line that's coming out now. There's so many different continuities for the Transformers, and they reboot the stories so often. This one's going back to the G1 storyline, the original stuff, but it's more of a spotlight on certain characters instead of an overall new story. So you just kind of can spend some time with one character in an issue or something like that. Really good.
Also, they'll like focus on Bumblebee, focus on
Go ahead,
Optimus
name
Prime.
name 4.
Okay, we just said Optimus Prime, Bumblebee,
You can do it.
Starscream.
You're gonna get it.
Oh crap!
Meg-
Come on, if you can put me on the
Megatron.
spot,
Megatron.
Megatron. Duh.
See? I knew
Yeah,
you'd get there.
You go. Yeah. Thanks, buddy.
You're welcome. Anytime. But I'm going to use that to jump off to TVs and movies, because Netflix just put out the War for Cybertron Siege
Oh my.
Transformers animated show. It's an anime. My animes.
Oh.
So it's dark and edgy. It's not for the kids.
Oh my. You didn't mention this last time. This is new material.
Well, I just watched it. It came out the 31st.
Yeah.
So I've just recently watched it, and I give it a solid meh. So if you need your Transformers fix, go check out the comic Transformers Galaxy. The show is okay, but man, it's got a lot of issues.
Yeah, for a guy who's a uber
Yeah,
Transformer fan.
yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't take a lot to please me, and that was more of a meh. And there's 2 more parts coming,
Oh boy. Hopefully they'll get it right.
so I'm sure I'll check it out. But this first one, yeah, it wasn't so great.
Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that, man.
Thank you for the condolences.
You're welcome. You're worth it.
While we're on Netflix, Mindhunter.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
So I think you said Steph was checking that out too.
Yeah, the first season or 2, whatever, she devoured it and she loved it or whatever.
Second season is around now, and I'm actually a little late on it. But this
So
is
was this second or third season?
this is the second season.
Okay, I
But
think she might have seen it.
a lot of people, being the time of the COVID, they're in the show hole. They've run out of all the material to watch, read, etc., and so forth. So if you're desperately searching for another show, check out Mindhunters. It's the story of the FBI coming up with how they do the psychological profiles of serial killers. They go and talk to a bunch of serial killers. They talk to Charles Manson in the new season. Really cool. If you like those kind of cop dramas, this might be up your alley.
Is anything else you've watched that's interesting?
No.
Awesome.
I've started, what is it like now, season 14 of It's Always Sunny?
Oh wow, yeah. See, you're behind.
Yeah, but I haven't heard it's all that great either, and I haven't seen too much to say that it is. It's
Last
okay.
couple seasons were hit or miss. I mean, there was one episode of not this last season, but the previous season that literally Steph and I cried laughing so hard. Steph almost wet herself. I mean, it was hilarious. But just that one episode, we've rewatched it like 3 and 4 times, and it holds up. But yeah, but like as far as I think I'd mentioned last time, I had watched The Sword and the Sorcerer, and with it was what Lee Horsley or whatever's big breakout role or something, and he didn't do much else. But anyway, it's like 3 blades on the sword and they fly. You can't even see the wires. Well, maybe a little.
Well, what I want to hear about is Robot Apocalypse.
Yeah. So since the last failed podcast, I've watched Robot Apocalypse. God, it was awful. I mean, even after having watched Zardoz recently, it's like woof. But no, I mean, this had a really, really low budget. The writing wasn't great. The acting was atrocious. But, you know, always I can find something nice to say. The outfits weren't entirely bad. You know, the outfits were kind of cool.
The costuming.
The costuming was, whoever did that gets props, especially with their low budget. But I mean, like the robots were the lamest thing in the world. I mean, anyway, yeah, it was awful. It was terrible. It really was. Yep. I give it a strong, you know, do not watch. I would love to see the
5 thumbs down.
The guys from Riff Tracks make fun of that. It would be easy. It'd be too easy. It'd be an underhand pitch for them, you know.
I have seen some where the movie is just too bad for even them to save it, though, where you're like, oh, God, just let this end.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Speaking of that, let's go on to games. Video games.
Video
You got
games.
anything for that? Speaking of my comment sections here.
Jeez, it seems so repetitive, but it's like I'm continue to play For Honor, and I'm having a ton of fun with it.
I was going to tell you this. I've played it a few times without you, and by few I mean like 2 or 3, and I've got to stop playing without you.
Really?
I'm going to get burned out on it.
Really?
Yeah.
All right. Well,
Because it's a fun action game.
right.
It's so much fun with your friends,
Oh no, it really is a lot. It's a lot more fun when you're playing with a pal.
but there's really no plot line.
No, there's no story. It's just you beating on people's heads.
Yeah, so it doesn't change that much.
No.
So,
I mean, the battlegrounds change, and now we kind of switch up that one time and played.
there's a lot of different
that
modes.
capture the flag thing kind of
'Cause,
reinvigorate us. Like, oh, this is a different.
This is complaining about it after 40 hours.
Yeah, and
more
I
than
bet
that.
you're still playing Dominion. Yeah, even I've got burnt out on Dominion, where I'm doing more 2 versus 2 or 1-on-1 versus other human beings, not just the AIs and stuff. Just kind of spice it up, you know, up my game. And so, like, one order was like play 4 matches of this thing that a lot of people aren't generally playing, so it makes people queue up for that more. It's the one thing it's kind of a capture the flag, but it's different. It's the what's it called, tribute? You know, where you have those 3 rods that you stick in the altars or whatever. That one's kind of fun because
Yeah,
it's
and
different.
we just discovered that the other day.
Because a lot of people don't queue up for people. Everyone queues up for Dominion, and Dominion's fun, but enough of that, and you're going to get kind of burnt out.
This is still highly recommended. This is
absolutely.
like, hey, after you've got 50, 100 hours in it, it might start to get old.
Yeah.
But yeah, highly recommended.
If you're the guy who's like, you know, I got about an hour to kill some time, it's a great little get on there, do 4 or 5 matches, get off. Yeah.
I just don't have a primary game at the moment. That's the good, like, the offhand weapon, the offhand game. It's like, oh, okay, I'm tired of this. Maybe I'll go play that for a little bit. Or, hey, my buds are online. I can go play that with them.
And there's somewhat different playing styles of the different heroes on there.
Oh yeah, I've been doing a lot of that too.
So there's that where I was playing the warder, and I've played the poop out of the Shigoki and had a lot of fun with that. But I was looking at the old dude with the halberd you were talking about. I'm like, I might check that
I
out.
want to say he's the lawbringer. No, you're talking about the other one.
The Asian, you know, he's got the long beard and he looks wizened and he's got a thing that's kind of not a halberd, but it's the Asiatic version of one or whatever. But he looks cool, and from some things you said, I was like, he might be up my alley.
Yeah, he was good. And I mean, once again, I'm talking about after you've put a lot of hours into the game. Because there is a lot of different variation between game modes and the way different characters play. So,
and so you find the one that fits your style or whatever, or you can adapt to. Because that's one of the things I'll say is, I think I quickly acquired the dynamic of the game to where I was competent, but I found that my games improved over time. So there is that element of like honing the, you know, your ability or whatever, which has been fun.
Okay. One of the things that I was talking about before was Mega Man X.
Yeah.
I got in the Mega Man X collection, which had, I think, all of them from Mega Man X to Mega Man X8 or something like that. So it went from Super Nintendo all the way up to PlayStation 2, I think. But all I'd really heard good things about was maybe X2 and X3, which were the ones that were on Super Nintendo. And I decided to save myself some money by not buying those because they cost about $100 a piece on the used market.
Wow.
And that's not complete in the box. That's just the game itself.
Wow.
So I said, yeah, I'll buy the remaster remake for the PS4, see what all the hype is about. Not impressed. X2 was more of an expansion pack because Mega Man X, fantastic game. Run out and go play it. 2 is more the same, where it's like, this feels Like they just added a few more robots in, but they didn't recreate the wheel nearly as much as they did with X.
Mm-hmm.
And then 3 is even further down, more repetitive, less inspired, less creativity.
Just kind of slapped it out the door, kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there are games that are like that where they just keep going down as they get more and more releases. So
Yeah. That you keep going back to that same well, and the well runs dry. So, is there anything you got, like, you conquered all the Castlevania games, you conquered Mega Man? What's your next
see,
Everest?
and that's why I'm getting burned out on For Honor because I
Ah,
don't have somewhere else that I'm like, oh, I would be playing this right now and saving For Honor until Matt's around. So I've been hitting For Honor just to have something to play, and I'm
yeah,
like, I'm grinding this into the dirt. I'm chewing the pulp of the orange now or something now. I'm
yeah,
just chewing it, the rind.
yeah. So you'll find your next mountain to climb or whatever.
Yep.
So I gotta say, so I have an arcade machine at the house, and so I said, well, to be a completist, which you generally are, I said, you want to come over and play the arcade version of Castlevania, and that's where Eddie draws his line, apparently.
Yeah, a resounding no.
Yeah,
I'm trying to think on the arcade if it's called like Vampire Killer or something like that. It's
start
not
me a
called
line.
Castlevania.
I keep meaning to fire it up and see if I can find it just to to see. But I know because there's 2,500 damn games on that thing. So I remember when I was really playing on it a lot when I lived in Wascom, going through the various games and just firing them to see what they're like or different ones. I know I'd seen it because there's a guy with a whip and there's vampires. I'm like, this is Castlevania. I mean, how can it? I don't know what they might be calling it, but there's a guy with a whip and there's hearts. And there's like the little hearts that you whip something and a little heart flies out. That's Castlevania, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but it seems like even Ghosts and Goblins is kind of like a. Or am I crazy? Never mind.
All right.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Vampire Hunter, I think that's what it is on the arcade. I can't even remember if that came out in the U.S. because, like you said, your system has so many
Yeah, I've got
games.
Japanese games that were never meant to be in the like. There's a little disclaimer like if you're playing this game in the U.S., you are an outlaw. And Korea, and I mean to be a completist, this thing's got over 2,500 games on it.
But that one was like notoriously hard. I've watched some of the like YouTube videos where the reviewers come in and they're like, it was designed just to eat quarters,
Oh,
so they
sure.
made it as difficult as possible.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, no, I'm not doing that. There's a lot of times I beat my head against a wall, but I'm going to draw a line on that.
Yeah. He's a masochist, but All right, so I thought that was funny. What's next, sir?
With that, I think we finally get to the topic.
Hot dog.
And last time we started this off at first edition, but then you had some more history before that.
Mm-hmm.
So why don't you go ahead, and this is our edit on the fly. Go ahead and start with that. Before D&D, in a world before D&D, this is what alignment meant.
Yeah, it's like in D&D, alignment is a categorization of the ethical and moral perspective of player characters, non-player characters, and creatures. Most versions of the game, Dungeons and Dragons, feature a system in which players make two choices for characters. One is the character's views on law versus chaos, and the other on good versus evil. The two axes, whatever, allow for 9 alignments in combination. Just a sidebar, alignment is often criticized as being arbitrary and unreal by some game masters and players. D&D co-creator Gary Gygax credited the inspiration for the alignment system to the fantasy stories of Michael Moorcock and Paul Anderson. The original version of D&D, I guess white box player allowed. Do we want to start there, or?
I thought you had more than that on the prehistory. Like
Well, I think
for the Grecians, they had the system
Oh, well,
of.
I threw that in later, but yeah, but I can. Let's jump to that.
That's
not?
why I was saying
Yeah,
start
right.
with that because
Yeah.
that predates D&D.
Yeah. So, like, if people go, well, where did that even come from in fantasy literature, which then led to it in the games, and alignments can be traced to ancient Greek philosophy with positive concepts like logos and cosmos, order and reason, opposed to negative ones, aporia and chaos with a K, confusion and chaos. Nietzsche, with other German scholars of the 19th century, identified these two modes as the Apollonian and Dionysian, the idea being that human nature was a merger of civilized Apollonian tendencies with the wild, animalistic Dionysian ones. Some also read similar ideas into the Epic of Gilgamesh. Interestingly, the Egyptians had a concept of order, but two concepts of chaos. One, represented by the god Seth, is the kind of chaos found in markets and nature, that which sometimes cause some destruction, but is also the source of creativity and new growth. And the other, represented by the serpent Apep, is the violent primordial chaos that only destroys.
Okay, so you talked about the beginnings of D&D there a little bit too.
Yeah,
So let's move on to the basic D&D.
Yeah, like I guess like White Box. The original version of D&D allowed players to choose among three alignments: lawful, implying honor and respect for society's rules; chaotic, implying rebelliousness and individualism; and neutral, seeking a balance between the extremes. The 1977 release of the Dungeons and Dragons basic set introduced a second axis of good, implying altruism and respect for life, versus evil, implying selfishness and no respect for life. As with the law versus chaos axis, a neutral position exists between the extremes. Characters and creatures could be lawful and evil at the same time, such as a tyrant, or chaotic but good, such as Robin Hood.
Okay. Fascinating.
Yeah. So that was like the 1977 basic set. Okay. Shall I move on to Advanced Dungeons and Dragons?
You certainly shall.
Advanced AD&D, released between 77 and 79, continued the two-axis system. The 1981 version of the basic set went back to the earlier one-axis alignment system. Second edition?
No, first edition.
Very good, very good.
In first edition, you have some classes that actually had predetermined alignments. Like a druid is neutral, a paladin is lawful good, a thief must be neutral or evil, an assassin must always be evil. One thing that we always joke about is neutral evil is the most evil of all.
The most evil.
And here in first edition, neutral evil is. It's doing evil for evil's sake. According to the DMG, it is of importance to keep track of player characters' behavior with respect to professed alignment, and their actions speak louder than words. For example, don't let the paladin let the party get away with evil acts. The typical lawful stupid paladin where it's like, well, we're going to go torture this prisoner, but the paladin won't allow it, so we'll walk him to the other side of town so he doesn't know what's going on, when really the player knows what's going on. A hand waved a fooling of the character, but really everybody knows what's going on.
And they made fun of that, and what's the old geek D&D kind of rip movie, what is it, Darkness Rising or whatever, where they had the guy play the paladin that they go, oh, look outside, someone's, you never seen that, check it out. That scene's kind of amusing.
If you changed alignments, that cost you a level and all the associated benefits, skills, hit points, etc.
Ouch.
Could be a big point of contention there between you and the GM, because if he says, your alignment's changed, bam, there's a level gone. Your bag right there.
Every player would be like, sweet, I want to change alignment every other day.
One of the other things it points out is that alignment changes should be gradual. Right. It's just not one act and then boom.
I mean, well, that would be a really jerky GM thing, like you did something out of the character of your character's alignment, making you change alignment. No, yeah, you should have to keep a record and like, it's been 3, 4, 5 times or something. And even then, like we talked about, maybe you should get some sort of warning from your god, like in a dream or something, Anyway.
Do you have anything for second edition?
AD&D second edition, released in 1988, the year I graduated high school, retained the two-axis system.
Take a look at your life.
In that edition, a character who performs too many actions outside their alignment can find their alignment changed and is penalized by losing experience points, making it harder to reach the next level. So those penalties continued in second edition that you just mentioned.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So we don't talk about second edition. That's where I came in at.
Yeah.
And that's, I don't know, maybe a flash in the pan for you. I know you played it some, but I don't think that's your most fondly remembered version.
Yeah, I played it extensively. I enjoyed it.
But I think this is also where, and I don't even think this is in writing, but where you'd be like, this guy is lawful good with neutral tendencies. Do you remember when you'd have and with this tendencies?
Yeah. Well, I think we talked about this last time that.
But we have to talk about it again.
Yeah. So it's like trying to remember, but it's like I remember in like the Gazetteer, whatever for, or they used to have the box that talked about the World of Greyhawk, which I own. It's awesome. But anyway, it would mention like this kingdom by alignment is neutral evil, or so like a different region of the world would be given a general alignment, So it's kind of interesting. Like the people here are generally lawful, but lawful good, lawful neutral, lawful evil, whatever. Like if you went to the Pomage where it's a bunch of goblins, this region is generally chaotic evil or something.
Yeah. Okay. Let me find that where I've got that. Societies have alignments. Rulers and the people may have opposite alignments. And when you do, there's going to be a conflict. Going back further in the notes here, alignment is a tool for the DM to use for NPCs. It is not a hammer to pound over the heads of PCs who misbehave, and is not carved in stone, according to the DMG.
See, a lot of stuff is things that he did his research, and you found him in. This is written in these.
Oh yeah, I
books.
went back and read all the sections of alignment in all the D&D books.
Yeah, from version 1 through 5.
Yep. Alignment is not your personality. Alignments can be openly known between party members or kept secret. So I think that's one of the things in 5th edition you don't see too much. Pretty much everybody bellies up to the table and says, I'm a so-and-so and I'm chaotic good.
But that was one of the things that originally brought this. I brought this topic up on Facebook on a group. It's East Texas Role Players, which is an interesting group sometimes. And one of these little topics will pop into my head and I'll throw it out there, and sometimes it just dead on arrival, but other times we get some really interesting discussions going, and that's what kind of prompted us to maybe, hey, we ought to use this for a topic on the podcast. But my thing was like, should players always be heroic? I mean, there's actually times down the line that in D&D the companies kind of said, well, they've kind of encouraged like you should have your players be heroes and be heroic, But anyway, but you look at some great book reading from D&D fantasy, like Rayson wasn't necessarily a good guy, but he ran with the heroes and did heroic things.
Because it was self-serving.
Well, sure. See, yeah. So I'm saying, so that made for an interesting story, an interesting character. He himself is really not, a knowable guy or a hero, but he helped accomplish heroic deeds, like you said, for his own self-serving ends. So anyway, that's a little.
Or like most every thief in a party.
Yeah.
They're not set out to do good things. They just happen to go, hey, when I follow these guys, treasure falls into my pocket.
Yeah. And that was something I was going to mention once we worked through this, but yeah.
All right. Sticking with 2nd edition, if a PC's alignment is changing, as you as a GM see that, then you should warn them. You should, instead of just putting the hammer down, say, hey, I think you're leaning this way. If you're maybe a paladin, maybe your order is feeling this or that, or you get a dream from your god telling you to get back on the path. Never tell the player that their alignment won't allow them to do something.
Yeah.
Let them take that action even if you think it's out of alignment for them.
Oh, yeah.
Because that's what the character does, and then see
Player
what are the
agency.
consequences. Yeah.
Player agency. You can do that, but you're going to deal with repercussions. Just like in our real world, you can do that, but you're going to deal with the repercussions of your action.
Alignments may or may not be detected depending on the situation. For example, an evil warrior sitting in a bar just having a drink, you may not notice that because he has no evil intent. But an evil cleric that has been committing sacrifices for decades and raising the dead, that may radiate such a negative aura that he can't get away from it, and he'll always be detected. So I thought that was kind of an interesting concept.
Yeah, because that's where it really could break the game and aggravate the game master, where you walk in a room and immediately the cleric goes, I'm going to detect alignment, and you're like, GD,
Which we have done that before. We were playing in a game, and somebody, was it a bracelet of ESP or
it was a headband of
ESP,
ESP,
and they detected evil thoughts coming from like the barkeep
and the waitress and the stable boy,
which sometimes in 1st edition, just gouging you on the prices could be kind of evil.
Yeah, oh, that's definitely evil.
We were like, why are these characters evil? What are they up to?
And the adventure went way off.
And that's it. We spent the whole time in the bar trying to figure out what was going on.
Yeah, instead of going to the adventure, we're like, well, wait a minute. Why are we detecting evil? What's going on with these people? We need to find out. We're going to search the bar, the tavern. And I love the guy running it said, wow, I've ran this at how many cons, how many times, and no one's ever used the ESP headband. And
nobody's ever not gotten into the dungeon.
Yeah. I mean, literally right at about the 4-hour mark, a con slot, it's like, well, we've pretty much plumbed the depths of this whole evil tavern thing. Like, let's go to the dungeon. He's like, we're done, guys. It was, but that's a great story.
But we had fun with it.
Absolutely.
But that's how alignment can be used there in a way too. Right. And as a GM, you can use it to bait the players sometimes. Go like, oh yeah, he's got an evil alignment. Why? Well, because he's kind of a scumbag merchant.
Yeah.
Doesn't necessarily mean that he was out kicking puppies.
Yeah. just he's done some very unscrupulous deals.
PCs can now willingly change their alignment at any time. And what's the catch, you ask? The next level costs twice the XP. Neutral evil is more back in line what me and Matt tend to think of it. That's you're just a selfish
Very
person.
selfish and
You look out for number one.
Yeah.
Which is kind of where Raceland starts out. The PHB gives you some alignment advice for the players. Don't pick an alignment that will be hard or no fun for you. So if you're the kinder, gentler kind of person, don't try and play a chaotic evil character. And if you're kind of a bad person all around like Matt, don't try and be a lawful good paladin.
Which is interesting advice, because I think I mentioned last time that when I was a kid first playing D&D, I would pick an alignment that was closer to what I thought, like, well, first was like a little kid, like lawful good, and then neutral good, and then chaotic good. Over time, as you're like, getting to be like a rascalsome teen. But my point is, like, I'd figure, oh, let me pick something to be easy. And as I got older and matured, I went, you know what? It's time to forget these underhand pitches, this easy stuff. I want a challenge, So then I tried to go to the polar ends, like, I'm going to play a lawful good, or I'm going to play a chaotic evil, just for the role-playing challenge to get those chops, because you really have to kind of dig deeper, stretch to play some of those guys and gals at the extreme ends of the alignment, Anyway, we'll touch on that maybe more in a minute.
Mm-hmm.
Are we ready?
Certainly will.
Third edition, sir?
Nope.
You rascal.
Consider your party alignment is also in there.
Yeah.
Which is something that we had in Barbarians of the Ruined Earth.
Mm-hmm.
My character, believe it or not, is the super chaotic good, heroic type.
Mm-hmm.
But does that fit in the post-apocalyptic, gritty Mad Max type of world? Because basically, it's Thundar in Mad Max.
Mm-hmm. That's literally kind of a good description of Barbarians of the Ruined Earth. Barbarian, it's yeah.
And we had one character just go murder hobo on an NPC, and the other characters are kind of trying to feel it out and see where they fall in the alignment chain here, and how how does this affect their characters? What would their character
because
do?
the thing is, like, Barbarians doesn't have an alignment system.
Right.
Yeah.
It also says alignment is a tool, not a straitjacket, which I think a lot of people going back and thinking of the old days of D&D, they do think of that. Like, oh yeah, I remember you get hammered if you didn't do this or you didn't do that.
Yeah.
Okay, 3rd edition.
D&D 3rd edition, released in 2000, kept the same alignment system as 2nd edition. All right.
Man, you had just oodles of stuff. When you look at your favorite editions of D&D,
I know I'm alienating people, so I don't like to really go into it, but I have some fond memories playing 3rd edition D&D, but as a system, it's literally one.
And as alignment, it didn't really recreate the wheel.
It didn't, yeah. They didn't reinvent the wheel. We'll just stop there. Yeah.
So what I have is off Pathfinder, because I don't own the 3 or 3.5 books at all. So Pathfinder being the kind of 3.75, it also takes the exact same quote. Alignment is a tool and not a straitjacket. So apparently they like that much.
Mm-hmm.
Neutral evil, though, is back to being evil for evil's sake.
The most evil
Pure
evils.
evil. It has no honor and is without variation. Chaotic evil is practically so chaotic that they cannot work together in a group. So you couldn't have a band of chaotic... Well, you couldn't have a chaotic evil party because they'd always be trying to undermine each other. So that was kind of interesting because a lot of times you do have the chaotic evil bad guy.
Right.
But in this, he wouldn't be effective because he's just so chaotic.
Yeah. And that makes sense.
There is no XP penalty for changing alignment.
Hmm.
And whereas before you had a lot of pages dedicated to alignment, in 2nd edition, for example, the PHB and the DMG have a chapter about alignment.
Wow.
In this, you get 2 3/4 pages.
Wow.
That's it. That's all the time they need to spend on alignment.
Because backing up, having played 1st edition and then 2nd edition AD&D, I love that 2nd edition really went into detail about what the alignments really mean and these descriptions and examples of it. Like, they're like, let's assume there was a party that had one person of every alignment. I love those descriptions. It really helped you wrap your head around what the different alignments meant.
The neutral evil character would argue this, but he's dead, so he can't.
Yeah.
They gave really good examples in 2nd edition.
I would actually encourage people to, if you can find that somewhere online or whatever, it's really, that was one of the things that really stands out from 2nd edition for me, was their description of the alignments in the player's handbook. Anyway.
All right. fourth edition. I'm sure
Dun,
you've got
dun, dun.
so much to say
The
about this.
much maligned fourth edition. D&D fourth edition, released in 2008, reduced the number of alignments to 5: lawful good, good, evil, chaotic evil, and unaligned. In that edition, good replaced neutral good and did not encompass chaotic good. Evil replaced neutral evil and did not encompass lawful evil. Unaligned replaces true neutral and did not encompass lawful neutral and chaotic neutral. So interestingly enough.
So in the fourth edition books, you get about a page of alignment, and you don't get any of it in the DMG at all. So that's how much the role of alignment has been reduced. Paladins now can also be any alignment. Up to this point, you had to be lawful good.
Yeah, and I mean it was a tough road to hoe. In first edition D&D, if you wanted to play a paladin, you had to have rolled a 17 and put that on your charisma. But you're a melee type character. You're like, I want to put that on my strength or con or dex or whatever, you know. So you really had to be dedicated to the idea of wanting to play a paladin because you had to roll some really. And honestly, that's another podcast. But like if you want to play a monk, you had to roll some pretty significant. You had to have certain stats at a certain level even to play these classes and stuff. Now, that's a whole other thing from first edition.
All right. Now to the current fifth edition.
Fifth edition, released in 2014, returned to the previous 9 alignments and included a 10th option of unaligned for creatures that operate on instinct, not moral decision making.
Right. Okay, and in the books, you get one page again, and there is nothing in the DMG. And here's one I don't think we said last time. As far as DMG goes, fifth edition is the least favorite, least useful for me.
Yeah, I had this conversation with somebody. Was that me and you? But
probably,
yeah,
but you've probably had it with other people.
Because I talked about, if you're a brand new novice game master, there's a lot of really neat material in the DMG. I will say that.
Yep.
It's really great. There's a lot of stuff that if you're a seasoned game master, you know a lot of this stuff. But like back, like the first edition DMG, oh man, it's chock full of so much useful charts and information and different stuff. I mean, to this day, I still refer to it if I run in fantasy games for certain charts and tables and different things. But yeah, I mean, the fifth edition DMG is like, I mean, does it have the magic items in it at least?
Yeah, because I think they want you to buy it.
Yeah, because other
that's
versions,
what makes you buy it.
Yeah, and other versions. Okay, the original DMG had magic items in it, but since then, other versions like they had the magic items in like the player's handbook or something, and you were like, "Wait, what?" So yeah, they did that this time because they wanted you to buy the book.
And then the rest of it is a lot of like this is how you would build your homebrew campaign, which is good. It's just not all that useful for
Here's
us.
how to build an encounter.
And it used to be if you were going somewhere, you'd have to bring the player's handbook, the DMG, and the monster manual. And now I never crack out the DMG. Nope. I don't have to haul that one around with me.
Yeah, that one's on the bookshelf at home. Like I said, the question I had posed on the internet was: should players always be good? Should they always be heroes? Fantasy literature has anti-heroes. Dragonlance's books have Raceland. He fights for the good side, but really isn't a nice guy. And we had a really interesting discussion on that forum about it. But it's, alignment's interesting. I know, like I said, there's times when I've wanted a bit of a role-playing stretch. And so I've played the polar, lawful good, chaotic evil, just to, and it's kind of like we talked about last time. It's like playing a character in a play where you go, well, I'm not, Death of a Salesman, what's the guy's name or something? I'm not him, but if I'm going to play him, well, what's his motivation in life? How will he react to a given situation? And that's interesting because I remember when we were younger and I first started doing that, someone would be like, wow, you're going to do that? I'm like, well, I wouldn't do that, but that's what my character would do, because I'm trying to get in the headspace of my character, and that helps with the whole thing of the motivation to write a background for your character so that you kind of know where did they come from, what was their upbringing, how many siblings did they have, because it might help you know how to react to a situation.
Right. Well, you kind of led into another one there where I was going to say Savage Worlds doesn't have an alignment system either that when we were playing that.
Yeah.
But how do you determine that? Looking at your background.
Yeah.
What did you do up to this point? Mm-hmm. What are the decisions you've made in life? What kind of background do you have?
Right.
DCC kind of goes back to 3 again.
that will law, chaos, neutral. And then I think I mentioned last time, Harnmaster has a really weird. There's like 7 choices or something, and it just starts at one end and goes down to that. And the first one sounds a lot like lawful good, and the last one sounds a lot like chaotic evil, and then it's just sort of shades of gray in between. And that one was one that a lot of people just threw it away. They didn't even use it. I remember reading online somewhere. But yeah, so different games have had different. Some have tried alignments, and some have just said never mind or whatever. Like I said, even though you know that. Like we're talking about Barbarians of the Ruined Earth is, based off the Black Hack. The Black Hack is based off of BX edition, basic expert D&D. It doesn't have an alignment, and for post-apocalyptic, probably don't need it. And I know there's certain people
It's all shades of gray.
yeah. And like I said, I've heard through the years, like people on forums or groups talking to DMs, like I don't even use alignment. I think it's arbitrary and blah blah blah, or it's
Yeah, so you lead into this question. Is alignment needed? Is alignment fun? Does it add any fun to the game?
That's an excellent question.
Thank you.
That's the kind of thing I'd love to hear some feedback from our wonderful listeners, our dear listeners.
And what's your opinion?
For some games, yes, and other ones, no. I know that and it's kind of a yes or no, because the fact of the matter is, and we said that, like I think last time we mentioned that you kind of at first didn't like the whole thing where like paladins didn't have to be lawful good,
Right.
and I'm with you there, because like I said, I think they should have called them just champions.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm a champion of my deity. I'm a champion of the good deity, the neutral deity, the evil deity. You're their, I'm their champion out in the world, whatever. But then, so don't call paladin. Maybe the lawful good one should still be called paladin. I think they're the Blackguard in 3rd edition.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're
anti-paladins.
yeah, anti-paladin way back in an old Dragon magazine article. So yeah, I mean, but for like say you're using a spell like protection from evil,
Mm-hmm.
we have to know if you're evil or not if it's going to work. But you might go, well, no, it's just called protection from enemy, and maybe if you're my adversary in the moment, well, this spell hedges you out or protects me from you. Oh, okay. But you can see where certain spells, per se, or let's say there's an area that's been consecrated. Well, we have to know that your character or these monsters are evil to know whether or not you can step on this hallowed ground. So I think in like fantasy gaming, it might be a concept that's needed for the mechanical aspect, But then I've known players literally that saying, I don't want to be constrained by, or affected by these spells. I'm going to go up the middle route. They're specifically playing neutral, not because it's a role-playing concept, but because they're trying to avoid...
You're covering all the ground right there.
Yeah.
So the other thing I was going to say is chaotic neutral a cop-out?
And definitely there was a time in D&D where people go, well, I don't want to be constrained by this stupid alignment stuff, so I'll be chaotic neutral. That means I can do whatever I want. That's not really what that means.
Yeah, that's sometimes, occasionally, that is a way that you're just trying to get one over on the GM.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, now if there's some protection from evil, I won't be affected. Or if this magic item zaps people that are of the wrong alignment, it won't get me.
Yeah.
But how does that add to your fun at all? It doesn't. It's like rolling dice and saying you rolled a 20 when you rolled a 7.
Yeah.
You're cheating yourself out of fun. You're not cheating the GM.
Yeah. Because for me, that can be a lot of the fun is the GM poses a situation. How do I react to it? Not me, but my character through who they are or whatever. And the alignments can sometimes be something that would facilitate or encourage role play, which these are called role-playing games. So that's just my 2 bits.
Okay. So sometimes an alignment, sometimes you need it, sometimes you don't.
Yeah, I could see game systems where I don't think it's necessary. But, through the years, like I played a rogue that was a halfling, and most people are like, he's going to be a little kinder or something. I'm like, nope, he was a jerk, whatever. So many people that like, well, I'm not going to play that evil rogue because, or gritty street tough kind of jerk, whatever rogue, because I'm playing with my buddies and I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings or whatever. But I mean, some of the most fun I've had is those players that are playing the gritty, street hardened, rogue, whatever, and then is that alignment, whatever, yeah.
Yeah. Well, in a world or in a game with alignments, one of the interesting things you have to think about too is how your character sees their alignment. They may think that they're a lawful good kind of guy, but then a priest come in and casts detect alignment on them and says, "Actually, no, you're a neutral evil
Yeah.
person." And just think about if somebody could walk up to you on the street and tell you, "Actually, you think you're living a good life, but no, you're this." What kind of
You're
effects
a
would that
terrible
have on
person.
you, on your
Yeah.
character?
Well, this individual, if they're that deluded, they might be like, whatever, you're crazy
But
or
isn't
something.
everybody the hero of their own story?
Story. Exactly. Well, when we brought this up last time, is that people will go, well, you can't play an evil character in a party with good people. Yeah, you can. Some people that want to play evil, it's this ham-fisted, twisting the corner of your mustache, the that guy. No, you can play the guy who's like, well, I know I have to work within this party. It can be subtle, but they'll have their opportunities, and that be the guy might want to keep his alignment a secret. What alignment you? None of your business. Whatever. What? Because you
That's
play.
never a giveaway when somebody keeps their
Yeah.
alignment secret either.
Yeah. So
Because
that
if
might.
you were lawful good, it would be obvious and you'd be shouting it from the rooftop. It's
Sure.
only when you're evil that you're
Yeah.
like, let's not talk about that.
But that's where you might ask the GM up front, like, we kind of like, whatever.
Metagame.
Yeah. But that's where Eddie one time played an evil priest that I thought was great. That he was subtle about it. It wasn't this overt, over the top evil. And like at one point, oh, you're going to help this group of goblins. Well, gosh, that's kind of nice for evil. Yeah, but then he basically is like, you need to worship my deity, and or else. I was like, oh, okay, there's the evil. Converted him, by sword point, so to speak.
ABR, always be recruiting.
There you go. Proselytizing at the point of a sword. But yeah, it was a really fun game, and I liked his subtle evil.
Well, you got to think
Evil.
for an evil character like that, it's going to be a lot easier for him to sell it to evil creatures, as we call them,
Sure.
than it is to go into town and be like, "Hey guys."
Y'all want to sacrifice a goat and dance naked in the blood?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah. But yeah, so I mean, there's definitely, I think there's opportunities to instead of resent alignment, utilize it in a fun way. Absolutely, and it can encourage role playing.
Me too.
Yay.
Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. Sometimes it's
Yeah.
fun, and sometimes it's not. I guess it's like a lot of role playing games
Yeah.
or things in role playing that you could say that about how your GM adjudicates it and how
Mhm.
characters use it in play.
Yeah. So I'm genuinely curious. I hope we get some feedback on this. I'd love to hear what people think about it.
Me too. But like a 0 level character, we're all out of hit points.